Hello everyone, it is Nairman214 here with a commentary on an IGN article that I found just while surfing the site randomly. It's probably on the front page still, at least at the time of this recording. The article is entitled, Why Shooters Are Better Than We and What Halo Could Learn from Red Steel 2. And this is not written by my favorite whipping boy, Matt Casamassina, or a guy who at least has a couple good articles every now and again, Mark Bozon. Instead, this is written by Michael Thompson, who I'm unfamiliar with mostly, so I really have nothing to say about him. Now, before I begin, there are games on the Wii that I like. I'm not going to say it's the worst system ever. However, I am ragging on this article for thinking that shooters are better on the Wii, because I'm going to be honest, I have an extreme opposite, the extreme opposite position than Mr. Thompson here. I very much accept his right to his opinion. However, I am going to state my own opinions while I'm reading the article. So, here goes nothing. Yes, I'm going to be a snarky, cynical bastard while doing this, and if you don't like it, well, tough shit. I'm totally expecting a bunch of hate comments, but hey, whatever. Okay, so, Why Shooters Are Better on Wii by Michael Thompson for IGN, April 12th, 2010. I hate using the word better, in quotes, to describe a game. For a while now, I've wanted to move it onto the trash heap alongside good, bad, and important, words that sound audacious but don't actually describe anything. That's the trap I've laid for myself, so let it be said here, if nowhere else. We shooters are better than the rest, full stop. Hopefully you haven't snapped your mouths in rage while reading that. Well, at least he understands the fact that his opinion is pretty absurd compared to standard gaming conventions, at least compared to what everyone else thinks, and I give him the credit for at least admitting that. Moving on. If you have, I promise to try and tell you just how and why so that loss won't have been in vain. If by the end of the next page I haven't convinced you that Red Steel is better than Halo, then I'll promise never to use that opaque and self-affirming word ever again. Even though you are going to use it again, and to be perfectly honest, Halo is pretty generic in the first-person shooter genre of video games. It does what it does well, but there are plenty of shooters that do it better, so it's kind of a pointless comparison to make. You're only putting Halo in there to stir up the fanboy debate, so. Moving on to the next paragraph, and I mind you this is a 2-page article, and each page is fairly long, at least by IGN standards, so this may take a bit longer than usual. Back before Nintendo had turned its swaggering revolution into a neutered Wii, Red Steel was the macho dreamboat that seemed ready to transform the shooter genre. A new level of aiming precision, gestural control, and a noirish Yakuza tale made it seem like video game combat was about to evolve again. Then Nintendo sold their soul to Martha Stewart's version of Skynet, and something called a bounding box entered game vernacular, while those awesome-seeming sword fights turned out to be imprecise and ruled by cheating half motions. On those grounds, Red Steel was largely written off as a failure, a buggy mess that proved all the general promise of the Wii Remote was underwhelming in specific execution. In other words, Red Steel sucked. It really did. At least he's admitting this. This is why I'm starting to like this guy much more than Matt or Bozon, at least from a journalist standpoint. I may disagree with him, but at least he's bringing up fair points in against his own argument, as proving points for his own, in which he's going to say, yes, that's why this sucked, and here's why it's better. So I can at least give him credit for this. Red Steel was a terrible, terrible, terrible game, and frankly, I haven't found a good first-person shooter on the system, really, at all. I really don't consider Metroid games first-person shooters, more like first-person adventures that involve shooting, but that's the only one that's come close to being good. Moving on. If a shooter is to be taken in the Halo and Quake mold of fast-paced, high kill-count showdowns with a side of circle strafing, then Wii controls do indeed get in the way of player proficiency. You can't move and kill as easily in Red Steel. I've yet to encounter any person able to explain why that is a bad thing. Well, the first reason is you kind of need control over your own character in which to execute things. When you're stuck kind of getting dizzy and running all over the place when you're not really sure where to even go, and the controls hinder that, it kind of leads to a frustrating experience. More realistic, yes, and how you would actually probably do in a gunfight, but realistic does not equal fun. Rod Humble, president of the Sim Studio, once said the difference between a game and a piece of software is efficiency. and he quotes, "A utility advances by reducing user interaction time and increasing productivity. A game does the opposite," Humble said. "It's the non-productive bit that's enjoyable." I will not comment on the quote, as he's kind of just using it. Moving on. The most obvious and most enduring issue with Wii shooters is the difficulty of using a floating pointer to control both aiming and looking. The options are either to live with a constantly shaking frame of view, or use the accursed bounding box that requires an aiming reticule to be directed towards the screen edge for turning. Using this system makes movement more cumbersome, but I find it also makes it more alluring. He's going to go on to explain this, because just hearing that sounds really, really retarded. Navigating spatial relations with the setup encourages more careful consideration of the environment in advance. In the same way that Wii Sports took a handful of actions that would have traditionally been enacted by a button press and turned them into full-body gestures. The simple act of moving in a Wii shooter has slow gravitas, suggestive of it being in control of an actual human body and not a camera tripod on greased wheels. I will give him that. It does feel more realistic, but again, it does not equal fun in any sense. I don't want to be tripping over my own feet trying to figure out where the fuck I'm even looking at, because the second I twist my wrist ever so slightly, the camera either, shakes all over the place to where I can't aim, or flies off in another direction and I turn completely around, leaving my back completely exposed to the enemies. To be perfectly honest, the sentence, navigating spatial relations with the sub encourages more careful consideration of the environment in advance. To be perfectly honest, the reason why people just run in with reckless abandon nowadays is because health regenerates, at a rate of about, I get a new freaking heart every 2 seconds. If they would go back to health packs and not recurring and, non-regenerative health, and a bit more, level design rather than run into a room and shoot them, we would probably not have this problem in first-person shooters. So that's not so much as a problem with the controls, it's more of a first-person shooter styling, and I found that in both Red Steel and... Sorry, I had to take a breath there. In both Red Steel and The Conduit had the same problems as other first-person shooters in this regard, so I do not see what he's arguing here. Next paragraph. Likewise, shoddy tactical decisions and hasty sprints around blind corners become much more difficult to escape. Again, if you would get rid of the regenerative health and those issues I just said, we wouldn't be having this issue. The sluggishness in turning is a neat mirror of the disorientation that occurs when you do quick turn or sprint in real life. Again, realistic does not equal fun. It adds a sense of ambient realism to basic movement in a way that rewards more nuanced thought about what you're doing. Again, does not equal fun. And also adds a sense of weight and momentum that offsets the precision of a remote's infrared aiming. Again, I have to say does not equal fun. It makes it more realistic, possibly, if the Wii Remote actually works as the way it's supposed to, but does not equal fun. This is not... I think his definition of fun is more realistic, but then again, it's kind of hard guessing what IGN's real opinion is at any point, considering it changes so schizophrenically, even within its own writers. So it's hard for me what he's trying to prove with this paragraph. It's more realistic and it's causing you to think a bit more. So what? I fail to see how that makes it better. At least at this point in the essay. Next paragraph. With dual analog control setups, this is balanced by the switching in and out of iron sights, often accompanied by a nudging aim assist. This heightened focus on fine aiming has to happen as an actual physical act with the Wii shooters. Your arm, shoulder, and diaphragm must sit still themselves while your legs anchor you into place so you can do all that aim nudging yourself. In comparison with the constant clacking in and out of iron sights, relying on the aim assist and operating the crane control steering mechanism, the heightened physical awareness and immediate precision of the Wii's pointing interface is a happy step forward. It doesn't make it any easier to win at anything, but it does add a mechanical interface that makes it easier to feel like you're in control of a human in an environment with real physical constraints. I'm beginning to think that this author is trying to vote in favor of a realistic motion. However, Yahtzee in one of his reviews brought up this point in one of his Wii reviews. I cannot remember which Wii review it is, but he brought up the point that we don't play video games to actually try and work out or be realistic. We play them to relax and unwind. I mean, I'm sure some people do find that act very enjoyable. It's like, oh, they want to get in the game. I, for one, however, am perfectly fine with the current control